Do creepy little towns really exist in remote areas of USA, Texas, or Arizona desert, Florida swamps, etc.? Or is that a classist myth created by urbanites? I drove through one of them in Texas just last night. There's some construction on I-10 driving from San Antonio to Houston, and the detour took me through the most the hills have Texas Chainsaw Massacre's small settlement I've ever seen. Pennsylvania is usually described as the following. You have Philadelphia in the east, Pittsburgh in the west, and everything in between is Pennsylvania. There's lots of creepy towns in that area. They exist. There's a town not far from where I grew up in Texas called Mingus. Population is about 200 and it's a weird fucking place. The Children of God cult used to have its main commune near it, and for a while the only people in town were a biker gang called the Cossacks. They do exist. Fun stuff about where my parents came from. There was one store in the entire town, and it was the gas station, feed store, and grocery store all in one. They graduated from a county high school because there weren't enough people to merit building a school in town. There were no stoplights in this town. Tiny towns exist. I've certainly passed through some very small, very rural settlements in the American Southwest, and I felt quite out of place and uneasy in some of them, but am perfectly willing to concede that this says more about me than the places. I don't want to speak for everywhere, but I'm from Utah. Way back when the state was founded, the Mormon Church had to outlaw polygamy. Well, I was driving down to southern Utah with my mom and drove past this really dilapidated small town that really was just 2 or 3 lawn streets and then maybe an old gas station or something. Mom told me to never stop there and to always make sure you got gas at the larger town before driving this way. Turns out most of the people there were related and suspected of being home to the fundamentalists who still support child marriage and polygamy. Colorado City, AZ is the creepiest town I've driven through. Stopped at the gas station, felt so incredibly unwelcomed. It's ran by the FLDS. Oh, they definitely do, all over the place actually. My friends and I got lost in South Jersey in high school and wound up in a little town in the middle of the Pine Barrens. We got a lot of stairs to the point of it being super uncomfortable. Half of us were also black, so that maybe had to do with it. Then as an adult, I went on a couple of solo road trips across the US. Loved it, but went through some really tiny towns. Tiniest I saw was a place in Wyoming that was literally just 2 small buildings on opposite sides of the road from each other. Sign said population, 11. Wish I remember what it was called. Cairo ill. Usually creepy just means it's either folks who either have been fucked by business tanking in the region and suffering economically, or folks who just want to be left the fuck alone. Not small, but my brother had a creepy AF experience in Provo, Utah. He was driving through and stopped to get gas. The weather was really bad snow, and there was a group of men nearby that were looking at him. He commented quite the storm, and they just stared at him for several minutes. He finished gassing up, got in his car, and left quickly. Have you ever heard of a sunset or sundown town? They can be pretty creepy if your skin is the wrong color. Ulysses, Pennsylvania. Centralia, Pennsylvania. East St. Louis, Missouri. Harrison, Arkansas, and many places in the Arkansas and Mississippi Delta and eastern Kentucky. There's a town in Missouri that is the meth capital of the USA, and when you go to a restaurant, everyone is tweaking and covered in needle marks. Also, some places in eastern Oklahoma, mainly near the Indian reservations. Also Pine Bluff, Arkansas, probably the sketchiest place in the USA. As a truck driver I can tell you, yes they do. And not specific to any state or region. They are everywhere. You a long way from home, boy. In the West Desert of Utah, there are settlements and small towns where you don't want to intrude. You have no reason to be there. Some just want to be left alone. Some are wanted by the law. Some are manufacturing meth. Some are polygamists. They drive into larger towns to refill truck beds full of propane tanks and to resupply groceries. You can pass through if you have reason, but you had better mind your business and not get too nosy. There are several polygamist communities where I live. All of the houses have large hedges in front, large fences, no address numbers. The houses are not quite finished and lived in illegally to avoid paying taxes. If you drive through, you're stared at, no one will talk to you, police may follow you. There are creepy towns in the West. I stopped for gas in a mountain community somewhere in eastern Tennessee, and when I walked into the gas station it was like the record skipped. The 2 dudes in there stopped playing pool and just held their pool cues. The cashier barely said a word. It was odd as shit. They absolutely do exist. Towns or unincorporated townships. The USA is a staggeringly big place when you really think about it. I'm aware of a township about an hour or so from where I live that's around 150 people, and most of them are in a very cold white church. The church is named as Baptist. but they all call each other brother and sister, speak in tongues, and I've heard rumors about some practices involving snakes. There are probably a ton of places like it really. There are little towns in AZ that you should not go near without a weapon or if you're a woman. Fucking scary camps out in the woods as well. Try the Pennsylvania town with underground fire. I don't think it can't get creepier than that. Yes, they exist. Sundown towns are real. Not all small towns should be seen as hostile or unsafe, but many are. If a town of 50-250 people also includes the sheriff wants a newcomer gone, they can make it happen.